Hello there, and welcome back to another video. This has ended up turning into a two-parter because the original story I wanted to tell required me telling the events that led up to it, so that is what I've ended up doing here today. My next video will be telling the tale of what occurs afterwards. Without further delay, let's get into the video. Shortly after Luke Skywalker escapes his father on Bespin, the Emperor contacts his Star Destroyer, requesting that Vader immediately make contact with him. It is too late though, as Vader has already left his Star Destroyer, embarking on his own mission to track down everyone who hid his son from him. He travels to the Lars homestead on Tatooine before returning to Coruscant, where he stops at Padme's apartment, which had been sealed since her death. Not for much longer though, as Vader broke the sealed entrance, searching for clues. His droid locates a small scout transmitter, which leads them to Sabe, Padme's former body double. The Dark Lord convinces her that he is working on behalf of the Emperor to track down whoever hid Padme before she died. This is the beginning of a partnership between the two. Vader sees many similarities between Sabe and his fallen wife, leading him to have a remarkable amount of compassion for her. Sabe admits to having stolen the security recordings from Padme's apartment and hiding them on Naboo, which is the next place they visit. Along their journey, they travel through the grass hills where Anakin and Padme shared happy moments, giving the now Dark Lord flashbacks. The Nabarese family lake retreat is their next stop, which is the location where Anakin and Padme shared dinner. Upon their arrival, they are attacked by Captain Typho and Captain Tonra, former members of the Royal Naboo security forces. Captain Typho is a character we saw frequently, guarding Padme during the prequels. These two men had been tasked with holding onto the security recordings from Padme's quarters. To get to the location of these recordings, they had to take an underwater sub, giving us flashbacks to the Phantom Menace. During their underwater travels, Captain Tonra tells the story of when Padme sent him undercover to Tatooine, shortly after she became senator. Sabe had accompanied him, where their mission from Padme was to free Anakin's mother from slavery. Obviously unable to do so, as Shmi had already vanished, they were however able to free a few other slaves. Their journey is interrupted by a Colo clawfish, giving us even more flashbacks to episode 1. Their sub is crushed by the Colo clawfish's jaw, sending them into the ocean. Vader protects them by slicing part of it with his saber, buying them time to get to a nearby Gungan construction. Inside, they find a mural of the final scene of The Phantom Menace. Sabe points out young Anakin Skywalker to Vader, telling him how after Padme died, Anakin had vanished. They mourned his death as much as hers. In a fit of rage, Vader takes out the mural with one swift stroke of his saber, and demands the recordings. Handing it over, the recording is played, however it isn't of Padme, but of Sabe and fellow servants of Padme, forming a pact and naming themselves Amidalans. Confused, Vader orders an explanation. Captain Typho tells him that the last time he saw Padme was when she left for Mustafar to find Skywalker. Sabe elaborates that years later they discovered Mustafar was Vader's home, reaching the conclusion that he had killed both of them. Reveling in the dark side and the responsibility of the death of his former self, Vader confirms their suspicions. Summoning a Sando Aqua monster to attack Vader, the Amidalans fire upon where the Sith Lord stands, sending him and his droid on a freefall into the monster's mouth. It begins to take off, following a device the Amidalans have deployed. However, Vader slices his way out of it. His droid notifies him that he is now the first person on record to have killed a monster of its species. The Dark Lord returns to the capital of Naboo, accompanied by Death Troopers. They are stopped by a Gungan bubble wart projector, as a larger group of Amidalans reveal themselves. Sentencing him to death for the murder of Padme and Anakin, Vader recalls crossing paths with their leader, Rick Ollie, which we see in episode 1. The Dark Lord breaks out of the bubble and wipes out the Amidalans, finishing by killing the man he had met when he was a young boy. Vader marches onwards to his destination, the tomb of Padme Amidala. He arrives at the entrance when a voice commands him to leave it alone, believing he has ill intentions. Turning around, Vader sees the handmaidens of Amidala, who featured throughout the prequels. He offers them the chance to leave, which they refuse, and they begin to protect the tomb of their beloved former queen and senator. Each time they strike him, Vader has different memories of Padme, however with their faces instead, as they all look very similar to his wife. Rage overcoming him, he picks them all up, choking them and sending them flying. With the final obstacle out of the way, Vader can finally enter the tomb. Upon entry, he sees the Japor snippet he carved for her as a young boy to bring her good fortune when they first met. Arriving at the final resting place of his wife, Vader is met with a fiery defiance from Sabe, but that doesn't stop him from attempting to rip the lid off the tomb. As he is doing so, his mind takes him back to happier memories of Padme, before stopping at the last time he saw her, when he was choking her on Mustafar. He suddenly hesitates when his droid uses this as a cue to scan inside the tomb. He discovers a med implant, allowing them to trace the origin. Vader tells Sabe to gather her fellow handmaidens and to meet him at Polis Massa. Polis Massa was of course the location where Luke and Leia were born in Revenge of the Sith, and also where Padme died. The Sith Lord and his droid enter the control room, where the droid analyzes the data. He located a Naboo J-type star skiff, which transported Padme and 2 droids and was flown by Obi-Wan Kenobi. Vader's mind goes back to the moment he saw his former master emerge from his wife's ship on Mustafar, and the betrayal he felt. Having to access the medical logs for more information, they need to get to the medical facility across the way. Heading to do so, they see a large squad of Amidalans arrive to take them out. His mind takes him back to the events on Mustafar, when he choked his wife, had his limbs cut off by his former master, and some of the last times he was addressed as Anakin. He uses this to fuel his anger as he brings down some of their ships and destroys the Amidalans. Successfully defeating them, Vader and his droid can finally move to the medical facility. Although the data's core was destroyed, his droid discovers a midwifery droid, where they can access her memory bank. A hologram of Padme on the bed shows up where she says, "Obi-Wan." Vader's droid comments on that name showing up again, and how important he must have been to her, which is all Vader needed to hear as he slices his droid in half. He continues to watch the hologram as his late wife told Obi-Wan she knew there was still good in him. Vader spirals as we see him viewing himself in his son's place when he was free-falling into the vents on Cloud City, although in this case we see him transform back into his younger, childlike self. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I always find it super interesting when Vader and the memory of Padme collide. I'll see you in the next video for the aftermath of the events that took place in this one. Until next time, may the Force be with you. Always.